everyone. Today is December 7th, 2020. This is our virtual Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting. It is 2 o'clock and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask staff to read the participation information for this virtual meeting, please.
Thank you. So the Mendocino Historical Review Board meetings are conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made immediately available to the board, staff, and the general public as they are received and processed by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda on the Planning and Building Services page. All requests for telecomment must have been received by 10 a.m. this morning. And that concludes the participation statement.
Very much, Julia Krog. If you have requested to speak under public expression, please call in now. Is there anyone who would like to have some public expression, Julia?
We did not have anyone sign up for public expression.
We thank you for your understanding during this difficult time. Thank you for your continued interest. I'd like to ask staff to conduct the roll call, please.
Okay, we'll start with Board Member Saunders.
Here.
Board Member Kapler.
Present.
Vice Chair Roth.
Present.
And Chair Lamb.
Here.
All right, everyone is present and accounted for.
So I'd like to ask Julia if proper notice has been established.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
Our first item of the day is item 4A, which is the approval of the minutes which were issued for the meeting that took place on October 5th, 2020. I assume everyone got a copy of those, and I'd like to know if there's any comments that anyone has. We'll start with you, Mr. Sanders. Do you have any comments regarding the minutes?
No, I do not.
Okay, Mr. Kapler.
I just have a question on 10A. This was the letter to the Board of Supervisors. I'm just wondering what happened to that.
It's coming around, and it's been signed by your chair and vice chair, and unfortunately I have been pulled off of my regular duties in the last month to work on various urgency ordinances and items for the Board of Supervisors. So it's been delayed, but I will get that sent around for the final signature of Board Member Kapler and Board Member Saunders, hopefully to have that finalized by the end of this week.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have any other comments.
Okay, well, I just had one question about item number, it was under 9C, but under review board action about the tents. And I thought there was some discussion about if full COVID restrictions were permanently removed, that the action would also be removed, but I could be wrong. Does anyone remember that?
So I can state that we did talk about, and I'm not sure if we did that during the meeting or outside of the meeting, but there have been various discussions around, and I know it's later in on the agenda as well, about the temporary modifications for businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I know we have been in contact with the property owner that did obtain the MHRB permit, and they're operating underneath the urgency ordinance that was adopted by the board as opposed to the MHRB permit. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I know there was an additional urgency ordinance which was approved by the Board of Supervisors,
Yes.
as per Ted Williams had let me know that. Thank you. I have no other comments on the review minutes for October 5th, 2020. I'd like to call to approve these. Call for vote.
I'd just like to say that not being asked, I don't have any comments on them either.
Oh, Hello. Sorry about that,
With
Mr. Roth.
with
Vice
that, I'll
Chair
make,
Roth, you're going to have your day soon.
so with that comment, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, wait,
Thank you.
Juliana's
We got a hand here.
waving her hand.
Do we hear a second?
Juliana's waving her hand.
Juliana,
Oh, Juliana?
Under item 1, call to order, it says it's a special meeting, and I just wanted to ask, was it a special meeting?
yes, it is because of the special meeting time. All of the MHRB meetings are special meetings right now, but thank you for clarifying.
Okay, in that case, I'll second.
So that was a motion by Vice Chair Roth and a second by Board Member Kapler, and I will go ahead. Any comments from the board members?
We're going to call for a vote. I believe there was a first and a second.
Yes, so we've got, we'll go ahead and do our roll call vote here. So Board Member Saunders
Yes.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
And we have Board Member Kapler
Aye.
and Vice Chair Roth.
Aye.
So that with that, the October 5th minutes are approved. Thank you very much.
Julia, has there been any correspondence that's been received for items that are not on the posted agenda?
No, we do not have any general correspondence for the review board.
Report from chair, same thing I've been saying for months and months. Please, if you have a neighbor, a friend, someone who lives near you who would like to volunteer for 3 years, it's very rewarding. It's a very important board to have in this town. Everyone comes in town and says, this is such a beautiful place. Mendocino looks so historic and so lovely, and there's a reason for that. It's a lot of hard work from the public who has put in comments over the years, but also from the board members. So thank you, board members. And if you know anyone who would like to join the board, that would be appreciated. Okay, so we are welcoming public expression next. Do we have anyone who would like to express some public expression? Julia?
No, we have no members of the public that signed up under public expression, but we do have individuals that will speak on public hearing items.
Very much. Okay, we do not have a consent calendar. And the next 2 items are on the regular calendar. Due to the fact that I am a broker realtor and I represented the seller and the buyer on one of the 2 items and one of them I still have listed, that I'm unable to participate. So I'm going to recuse myself for the next 2 items and hand the gavel over to Mr. Ian Roth, the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Lamb. I am going to put you on hold at the time being, and we will bring you back in. And if we have any troubles, I'll be giving you a telephone call. So
Thank you. You'll text me when we're done. Yeah.
will do. Okay, you are going on hold. All right. So, Vice Chair Roth, please take us away.
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. So this is case number 2020-0013, owner applicant Lorena and Kristen Aiken. This is a Mendocino Historic Review Board permit for construction of a new 2-story house with detached garage and drawing room, water storage tank, picket fence, and roof-mounted solar. Staff, is there any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
No, go ahead. Yes, thank you, Julia.
Sorry, Julia.
No, go ahead, please.
Not received any definitive comments on the phone or email, although some of the neighbors have indicated they would like to provide public comment.
Okay, thank you. Staff, would you like to present application 2020-0013?
Okay, thank you very much. Juliana Cherry with Planning and Building Services. This project is located on a vacant lot on Ukiah, 44900 Ukiah Street. As I mentioned, is a vacant lot, and it is adjacent on the north and south side and on the west side to Historic 1, Category 1 structures. The Flanagan Escola House to the north. To the south, there's a historic structure probably associated with like the Nicholson Inn. And then to the west, the Bowman House. So proposed is a 1,900 square foot home with a single gabled roof and multi-light window. The entrance to the house faces Ukiah Street as proposed. Other accessory structures include a 2-story, 300 square foot garage with 300 square foot drawing room above the garage. The current property owners are architects, and I suspect that they would like studio space for their architectural firm above the garage. The garage door faces School Street. This is a corner lot. Water storage and well pump would be located in the garage with access from the exterior north side of the garage. So while the water storage and well pump is within the footprint of the garage, you would access it from outside of the garage on the north side. Exterior finished materials would include redwood board and batten siding, wood frame windows, wood doors, OG profile copper gutters and downspouts. The picket fence would be overlapping redwood pickets. No exterior colors are proposed, therefore staff recommends approving a redwood stain finish. The property owner may also paint exterior surface colors previously approved by the review board. For example, colors from the Benjamin Moore Historic Collection or Off-White Collection per our policy. Roof-mounted solar is proposed facing Ukiah Street. And we do have some guidelines regarding solar. New construction since January in California, solar is energy efficiency is very important. And so you'll see with new construction of residential structures that solar is a part of the building permit process. And so the applicant is proposing solar on their gabled roof facing Ukiah Street. So in addition to the MHRB permit, the property owners will need to obtain a categorical exclusion permit for the residential use that they'd like to do. Staff has prepared draft findings for the review board to consider and are recommending 13 conditions. If you'd like me to go over the individual conditions, I'd be happy to. They mostly are very standard. Condition 10 talks about the propane tank not being visible from the street. 11 talks about the fencing material. 12 addresses walkway surfaces. And number 13 requires that categorical exclusion permit. Staff is available should you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry. Appreciate that. Is the applicant present to make their presentation?
Yes, we do have a representative of the application here on the line. So Christian, when you are ready, please unmute yourself and state your name for the record. Oh, and it looks like we have two different ones. So it looks, let me see here. Let me go ahead. Let's see. Christian, do we have you on the line? It is *6 to unmute if you're having trouble on your computer. I see a hand raised.
Okay, there we go. We were
Oh.
video chat, but it looks like our microphone was not working properly, so we are now called in, but we can see you all.
Okay.
Go
So
ahead,
please go ahead and provide any comments you have.
I'm sorry, are you able to hear us okay now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and nice to virtually meet you. Hopefully we'll meet you in person here soon. Let's see. So yeah, I think the summary provided there was accurate. The only thing I would point out with regard to the solar on the gabled roof facing Ukiah Street is the solar product we had considered is the solar shingles. So we are not talking about a panel system. We are referring to something that looks very much like a shingled roof product, but these are the Tesla solar shingles. Because we do understand the concerns over the appearance of solar panels themselves and how that would look from what is a rather public intersection there at Ukiah and School Street. So our intent would be to use a solar product that is effectively, for most people, unless they are clued into the product itself, going to appear as a shingle rather than a panel.
Anything else you'd like to add to the presentation?
I guess the other thing that we are proposing a single skylight, which is on the north side of the gabled roof. And I know there are often concerns over skylights. This is shown, you should see this on one of the elevations. This would be the north elevation, which I believe in your packet is on sheet. It's page A8 on ours. Hopefully that's the same page you're looking at, but this is the north elevation where you can see that above one of the windows on the back side of the house there. There you go.
Thank you.
Right, so we're using that single skylight. Otherwise, we've, our interest, of course, is in line with the town's interest in keeping this appropriate in terms of historical context. And I guess the other item that could come up in discussion, and I believe Juliana just brought this up while we were trying to connect our microphone, is the use of stained redwood board and batten as opposed to painted. This appears on a number of homes in Mendocino, but I do realize there is a preference for paint, so we are open to that.
Okay. Anything else, or are we good?
I think that's all. Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions you may have of us.
Okay, and we will come to that point. We're going to hear public hearing, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and then board members will have a chance to ask questions of both staff and the applicant. So,
thank you.
Great. So public hearing is now declared open. And you said we do have applicants? No, we don't.
Actually do not. There's no request for telecomment under this particular item, and it does not appear we have anybody waiting on the line here to provide any comments. So it looks like we're ready to move on from the public comment portion.
Okay, so we're closing public hearing, seeing as how there is none. So now we're gonna have board members presenting questions to staff and the applicants. So, Board Member Saunders, do you have any questions?
What I couldn't figure out, it's a question is where is the propane tank, by the way? The small tank, I'll have to see here.
The propane tank would be at your northeast corner. It would be underground. We're trying to keep less visible as possible, and obviously that the intakes would be surrounded by vegetation to not have it apparent that the utility is there.
Okay.
Could we real quickly bring up the page 2? Oh, you're doing that already. Thank you. Read my mind.
Right, you'll see that in the upper right there of the plan.
Yeah, it was too small for me to read. That's the problem.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
I realized how this printed on 8.5 by 11 at horizontal, and that is very hard to read.
Well, I have old eyes too, so.
Any other questions, Board Member Saunders?
Not from me, no.
Okay. Board Member Kapler, questions, comments?
Sure. Well, first, I was hoping we could get bigger pictures, but I see we're getting some bigger pictures of the plans here. So that may take care of my concern there. The package we got, the pictures were quite small, and it was hard to see the details. On the question of the skylight, I think the staff is opposing the skylight. Why is the skylight absolutely necessary?
So it would be an operable skylight, just to serve the dual purpose of ventilation and daylight in that portion of the house.
It is in a bathroom, and because of the way we laid out the upper floor, trying to not only serve that interior office, and the bedroom is basically a Jack and Jill bathroom, and we needed some sort of like way to ventilate that room without not only depending on the mechanical aspect of it. So we're just trying to create, not only brings daylight, but also be able to, like, you know, ventilate it from above to avoid steam and other damaging elements in there.
Okay. In addition, well, I was very happy to hear you talking about the solar shingles because I was quite concerned about the solar array. Could you give us some indication of, I think it's on the south facing roof that this is going to be placed. Can we look at the picture of the plans for that? And does it cover the entire south facing roof of the main structure? Is that what you're proposing?
So it actually is the roofing product that we would use on all roof surfaces. And what they do is, some of the shingles are inactive shingles, so they all look the same. But the shingles facing south, of course, are our prime solar exposure for the purpose of generating electricity. Those will be active shingles, so they will be photovoltaic in their capacity. The shingles will all look the same though, so you will not see a difference between the active and the inactive shingles. You will just see these dark, you'll see that actually in the image, the second image from the right on that sheet, right? They're solar roofing shingles. The entire roof of the house will take on that appearance. So you won't see a difference between the north and south side.
So it'll be on both the north and the south of the house. And what about and the garage too?
They will be the same, yes.
Okay, so both of the structures will have the shingles.
Exactly.
Okay. And I also had a question about the sidewalk on Ukiah Street. There's a very dilapidated sidewalk on Ukiah Street. I wonder what your plans are for that.
Right. We had proposed using gravel at our actual entry in the driveway itself. I believe so where the sidewalk itself needs to be repaired and restored. I know there is a general interest in avoiding concrete wherever possible. So it may be that we can feather gravel out there or some sort of decomposed granite for kind of a natural, not completely hard edge, but something that kind of fades into a natural feeling sidewalk there. Because as you walk that area, you can see where, you know, water has drained down off the street and caused some erosion and whatnot already.
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with removing that sidewalk. That sidewalk is really not a sidewalk anymore, and it's kind of dangerous. And so,
right.
You know, yeah, if we could agree on using gravel or whatever, just, I guess my interest is in getting rid of it, basically.
Right, right. Yeah, we would completely agree with that. It seems to be more of a tripping hazard presently than serving any functional use.
Right. Okay, that's it for my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Kapler. So I've got a few questions. The first one is, are the Tesla shingles available currently?
Yes, they are. We have a project right now in La Selva Beach, Watsonville, where your Tesla has come in and they are starting their work using that product. what they've done is they're trying to break into the solar market. So their panels and shingles are, I mean, I don't work for them, so I don't want to necessarily advertise their product, but they've effectively offered a discount for sort of first adopters to get themselves into the game and compete with other solar providers. And our interest, of course, was simply maintaining compliance with the current code requirements that came live this year. And to do so with the shingle seemed like a fair compromise for, you know, aesthetic requirements and the requirements of the building code that we do have solar.
Okay. And are there any completed installations of the Tesla shingles?
I do believe so. And what I can do is we have a rep there that we've worked with to get product information from. I will have her, Brittany is her name, I will have her provide me with some installed examples in the state and have those sent over to me. And then I'll be happy to forward those over for reference.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm looking at page 3, which is the floor plans. Can we bring that up?
Staff is bringing that up. Just give us one moment here.
Not a problem. Technology is always fun.
Always.
So let me see here. So I'm looking on the right-hand side, which is the second floor.
Right.
And I'm looking at the configuration. There's a total of 4 basins, 2 showers, and 2 toilets. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. If we look on the drawing studio, I see a full bathroom with basin, shower, and toilet there as well.
That's right.
So my concern, and I don't know whether we have purview over this or not, if it's just the 2 of you living there, even if you had guests, you still have ample bathroom facilities. My concern is that the drawing room doesn't stay a drawing room, but rather becomes a guest cottage or rental.
No.
No, what that will be is where effectively we will use that as a home office. We do have 2 daughters though, and they will be living with us. They're 12 and 9. So this is for 4 people.
Okay.
And they sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and Vice Chair Roth, that would be something that falls more underneath the planning division's purview when we review the building permits coming through for determining what that, classifying what that use is and whether or not both those facilities are allowed to be in there. Very likely when you have a full bath offered within it, it typically kicks you over into being considered a guest cottage. Even if it's not intended to be used for guests necessarily, that's just how the definition falls. So that is something we would be reviewing at the time of the building permit submittal to our office.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
So could I ask a supplemental question, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, please.
Being part of the committee on the water board, so is that when the discussion about the usage of the well will come up and whether it's permitted, it's got the right groundwater permit in there to service that amount of facility? Is that when that comes up in the planning sequence?
If I may, when they apply for the categorical exclusion, they need to demonstrate that MCCSD has authorized them to extract groundwater and also that they can provide a connection for sewer capacity. And MCCSD communicates with planning and building about the number of, say, toilet facilities that are allowed.
Okay.
And all that activity comes after our actions? We're the sort of the front line?
It's part of the categorical exclusion. And the categorical exclusion, one of the findings that we need to make to issue that is that the review board has found the project to harmonize within the district. So first they get the MHRB permit, then they get the categorical exclusion.
Okay, understood.
And we, just to clarify, we do have a groundwater extraction permit on file, which allows for the extraction of 200 gallons per day the shared well.
And I know that doesn't fall under our purview, but I know that since October, I've had to call up Mendocino Water Company 6 times. So, yeah. So adding another unit, I mean, I understand you're right. I'm not against it. It's just, it's a tough spot to be in. I know that Wayne's he's gonna ensure a nice business for years to come. On the aesthetics, it seems to be, and I've only been on DRB for 1.5 years now, the MHRB, and I haven't seen but one other residential permit comes in front of us. I'm sort of leaning on home with your experience, does this seem to aesthetically fall within the aesthetic and combination of those pieces that you guys have seen before? Home, did you hear that?
No, could you
I'm
repeat?
sorry. Having only been on MHRB for 1.5 years now, and I've only seen one of the residents come forth, I wanted to sort of lean on your expertise as to the design elements and the aesthetics and what your feelings were about how this fit in or not.
I hate to disabuse you of this notion that I have any expertise with this whatsoever. We haven't had that many, since I've been on the board, which is what, 2.5 years now, we haven't had that many new buildings come before us. So it's a little hard to see what this will look like exactly, but it's a rather modern structure, obviously, but it is board and batten, and it is consistent with a lot of the requirements that we have for buildings in the village. I know that I think our guidelines even talk about the fact that, you know, the new buildings in town don't have to be don't have to look like 100-year-old buildings. They don't have to look like Victorian buildings or whatever. But I didn't really have a problem with the design of these buildings from a visual standpoint.
Thank you. I was just going to also, I'm picturing where this is located. Nicholson House is there. Cafe Beaujolais is there. So is Luna Trattoria within the Sweetwater complex of buildings, which has very much the same type of vernacular. Referring over to what Planner Cherry put together in, where'd it go? I just had it. It was table 2, I believe. Yeah, in table 2, I appreciate the stating of the guidelines and the proposed for each of those different structural elements. So thank you for putting that together. But oh, go ahead, there we go. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. No, it seems it seems to be within harmony of the different elements that we have in the village. So any other questions, comments from the board?
I guess I'm just thinking about power and stuff. You're right about the water. Where the well is, I'm assuming sooner or later somebody's going to have to deliver water to that holding tank. It seems like that's a highly likely situation, and I assume that's in a reasonable place. But then I was thinking too about the solar cells. Where's the power unit for that? I mean, or is it just direct connect? How does that connect up to the rest of the system, I guess? And where's the connection made? Just curious in terms of how.
So staff is showing where the water is stored within the garage here.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the solar equipment is stored here in the garage.
Okay, so it's
the solar equipment is within the inside of the garage, and the water tank is accessed from outside the garage.
Okay, so you could get to both of those fairly easily from School Street then, if you needed to. Yeah. Okay. That was
Oh, that's right.
my question. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like, as staff, to talk a little bit more about sidewalks, since one of the members brought up sidewalks. We do have an exemption within our code that if sidewalks are built matching existing sidewalks, it is exempt from an MHRB permit. But if sidewalks are built and they do not match, then they do need an MHRB permit. So if the review board is asking, and it's within, I think, the nexus to ask to have these sidewalks repaired or refurbished, perhaps we could have some agreement on whether it would match the existing sidewalk, which travels farther west from this property, or if you wanted to have a different material than the sidewalks that are west of this property. The sidewalk, I believe, goes all the way to the next corner, which maybe is Howard Street. It's not the greatest sidewalk, but there is a cement sidewalk there.
As far as I'm concerned, they should remove those sidewalks. They're a disaster now, and I don't know that you need a sidewalk there. I mean, we have a lot of this town that just doesn't have any sidewalks at all, and that's fine with me.
So perhaps then in the motion or some discussion with the applicant, we should clarify that the sidewalk should be removed as a condition of the permit.
Yeah, I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay.
And
So,
how does
yeah.
the applicant feel about that?
Yeah, we'd completely agree. The sidewalks are in obvious disrepair at this point, and yeah, honestly, if they were sort of a softer, almost just kind of went away. No, I don't think we want to leave them just exposed dirt, so to speak. But maybe a light, decomposed granite or some kind of, just for erosion control in there, would be appropriate.
So that would leave a discontinuity between this property and the next one, presumably.
Well, I'm going to make the same suggestion.
Well, yeah,
for
but
the next one.
that was going to be my point. How many properties are along that? Is it just the two, or is there three? I can't remember. I have to go back.
There are a total of 4 developed lots, I believe, on this block. This being a corner, and then the mid-sacks are on the westerly corner by Howard. I want to draw your attention to condition 12 if the review board wanted to discuss amending condition 12, and I'd be happy to make some suggestions. And we can take a brief break if that's what the review board would like, for staff to craft an alternative condition 12.
I can't actually, let me just read the rest of that. The video is getting in the way in the end.
Grass, gravel. So we have walkways and driveways surfaces shall be of brick, flagstone, board, grass, and gravel. Asphalt and concrete are prohibited. Major coverage of front yard setbacks is not allowed and should be limited to areas shown on the approved site plan. So if we're looking at removal of the concrete for putting gravel in its place, is that not covered here?
I don't think that the sidewalk is shown on the site plan.
But if we were to call out that condition, do we need to change number 12?
I guess my concern is that we have an exemption for sidewalks to match existing, which would be, say, to match what's next door to the west. If you want a different kind of sidewalk in front of the property, we should call out what that sidewalk looks like, and also whether or not the sidewalk should be extended to School Street, since this is a corner lot.
So can that be done through the motion?
It can. I'm just suggesting that we make it also a condition, like condition 14, or amend condition 12.
Why can't we have a condition that says that the existing sidewalks will be removed?
All right, that sounds simple and straightforward. We could, in your motion, you could suggest adding a condition saying existing sidewalk fronting the property shall be removed.
And we would have to determine what should be replaced with, such as gravel.
Well, that would be a different condition. That would be the existing sidewalk shall be made from gravel. Where Holm is suggesting that there not be a sidewalk.
I guess that the point is, if you dig up the concrete, what are you left with? Do we need to replace it with something? Is that really what the question is?
Yes.
So that's something for the review board to discuss, because Holm is suggesting no sidewalks, and others are suggesting that the sidewalks have a surface like gravel or something.
Right.
Yeah, I think my point is, if you dig it up, something's left behind. What is it, and whether it's gravel or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So there has to be some condition there, and then there's the discontinuity between either the next building, which we're going to talk about later, or the other two buildings. There's got to be something about how do you abut those things, I guess, is my point. Because if I remember rightly, there is a continuous something along the front. So it seems to me there's two things. One, if you say take up the concrete, you have to define what you're going to replace it with. Otherwise, you're just left with a kind of muddy hole, perhaps. And two, you have to decide how you're going to abut it to the adjacent property sidewalk. So those are maybe things we need to discuss.
The sidewalks. Yeah, I don't know that we need to get into the sidewalks that are off to the west. The adjacent property, I would say we deal with it the same way that we're dealing with this one. But the ones that are further west, those sidewalks are in much better shape. And I don't think we have to deal with them. I think we could just have those sidewalks end where they end. The sidewalks I'm concerned about are really they're just pieces of concrete, basically, that have deteriorated to that extent. I mean, I think it's hard to even call it a sidewalk anymore.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you. I think my point was more is there's going to be a join somewhere between the existing sidewalk and whatever goes in between. And do we need to define what that join is? I mean, for example, if you dig up the old sidewalk and there's a exaggerate 9-inch drop from the present sidewalk to the gravel, somebody needs to say something about that, I would have thought. So I'm thinking more of the abutment than I'm talking about changing the sidewalks that exist. So if we write a condition, it seems to me you have to say what replaces the concrete, and you also have to say how it joins up to the adjacent sidewalk. Is it level? Is it above? That's the only thing I'm really kind of thinking through in my head. I'm doing it real time, so I may not be making sense.
You're making sense. I do believe I heard. Go ahead.
Question we would have from our perspective would be, so the existing sidewalk appears to be non-compliant given it's concrete, and that seems to be in direct opposition to section 12. We would be looking at one of the compliant surfaces as a replacement, just to bring the proposed condition within compliance. The other, I guess the question I would have is, the entire sidewalk is outside of the property line of our parcel there. So I'm not totally sure where the responsibility lies so much as I understand a transition to our drive.
My understanding is that the property owner is responsible for the sidewalks. It's amazing, but I think that's the case.
Maybe Julian.
Right.
Comment.
Yeah, maybe some clarification on that would be helpful.
It is true that in this jurisdiction, like most in California, the sidewalk, the right-of-way in front of the property that you own, even though the right-of-way may not be your property, as the property owner directly adjoining the right-of-way, you are responsible for for example, the sidewalk. So here, it is, I think, an appropriate nexus for the review board, if they are concerned about the sidewalk at this property, to clarify what they feel would harmonize within the district about pedestrian pathways in this area. We have a whole variety of types of pedestrian pathways, from dirt paths to wood boardwalks to cement sidewalks to nothing. And it's really the review board's direction on what they would like to see. for the pedestrian pathway at this corner lot of School and Ukiah Street.
Okay, so we have a whole lot of sidewalk issues, which seems fairly minor in the whole grand scheme of things.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
Well, my motion is to remove the existing sidewalk, and if people are insisting on it, we could ask that the concrete sidewalk be replaced with gravel. But I'm happy just to remove the sidewalk.
Okay, let's make a definitive motion.
Okay, remove the sidewalk and replace it with gravel.
Great. So we got a motion.
I would maybe modify that and add to be level with the adjacent sidewalk or something like that as part of the condition. Because I mean, Juliana, you're puffing your teacup there. I'm not sure you agree with me or not, but I'm concerned that, you're going to get a step or something that people are going to trip over.
And if I may, a consideration for the review board could be, like we've done with some other projects, is to bring it back under matters from staff as a clarification once the property owner maybe has had an opportunity to look at what that transition may be, now that they understand the review board's intention to not want to see a sidewalk there, and to perhaps come back and receive some clarification from the review board on that at a future time. And then I do also just want to clarify that Board Member Kapler, I assume your motion is for approval of the project, subject to the conditions with the additional condition related to removal of the existing sidewalk. I just wanted to make sure I was clarifying.
Yes, my motion right now is just dealing with the sidewalk issue.
Okay, just the sidewalk.
Right.
Julia, I would like to express my support for your suggestion, because as I heard gravel for the sidewalk, I'm a little concerned that DOT may take issue with that, as gravel really does accelerate the deterioration of county roads. And you typically see DOT requiring a more durable surface than gravel directly adjacent to county roads. So the idea of having the applicant come back for clarification on what the replacement material would be, I think was a good suggestion, Julia.
Okay.
So I'm at a loss for what the motion is at this point.
At this point, I've heard the motion is the existing sidewalk fronting Ukiah Street shall be removed and replaced with gravel.
Does that include approval of application?
No, it's just the sidewalk.
And the suggestion was that we not do that right now, but we wait until we get further clarification of what the property owner wants to do, or, I mean,
I think the motion can be made. Staff would just recommend that you include basically what would be sort of a caveat within there that would state that this item shall come back in front of the review board on the replacement material for the sidewalk, and be under a clarification basically in the future. And you don't have to restate that. We can capture that into the motion if you are in agreement with that. But that does provide the opportunity for us to ensure that whatever the review board action is today is not going to create an additional sort of hazard or issue with any other infrastructure within that area.
So maybe can I take a stab at the motion? And the motion is that the sidewalk be removed, and the recommendation is that it's replaced with gravel, subject to whatever review we have to have from planning or the DOT or whatever, and whatever comment the applicant has coming back. Is that, how does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
So I'm a little confused, because I thought the application was for the building itself, and that we're taking the sidewalk separate from that.
I think they're just wanting to make sure it's clear, just the discussion on the sidewalk separate from the rest of the application. So stating their intention clearly about the sidewalk, and then we will need a separate motion related to approval or denial or modification of the application itself.
Okay, so
what I've heard is a motion and an accepted amendment to the motion, but not a second to the motion.
Just a question from our perspective as the applicant. If, one of the items in number 12 there was grass or, a natural planting effectively, if we were to propose that rather than gravel, is that something that we need to, is effectively still pending DOT commentary, or could we proceed with something like that given the risk of injury to the roadway is far decreased in comparison to gravel?
Outside of my
Julia, what do you think?
I think, usually grass and planted surfaces are not necessarily an issue with our Department of Transportation, as long as you don't plant something that obstructs the public access way. That would be the real critical thing. So don't put any shrubs or trees in there. But if it's just grasses, I don't necessarily see a challenge with that. And if we did include also that we could just as a part of the application processing, confirm with our Department of Transportation on that point, just to ensure there is no issue. And then if there is an issue, we can always bring it back for clarification to the review board at no cost or fee to the applicant. It would be more of a clarification on that point.
Okay. In that case, I think, let's proceed with proposing grass, which I think provides a natural transition to surrounding surfaces and seems to be less contentious perhaps than gravel.
Okay.
So we have a motion and an amended motion. So what do we do here?
The motion I propose would just be amended to recommend from recommended gravel to recommend grass, subject to the applicant, DOT, and other review, right? So maybe I should restate it, or unless you want to, Home.
No, that's, I can second your motion then.
Okay.
Now, this is going to be a separate condition, right? Or a separate finding? No, condition, right?
Yeah,
All right, so if I can see if I can understand this. Holm has withdrawn his first motion, and Alan Saunders has made a replacement motion to remove the existing sidewalk fronting Ukiah Street and replace it with grass. And that motion has been seconded by Holm Kapler.
That's correct.
And that would be a new condition, condition 14.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
All right, Vice Chair Roth.
Yeah, aye.
All right, and Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
And Board Member Saunders.
Aye.
So
Okay.
that motion carries unanimously. So that condition is added. And now we would be looking for a motion from the review board related to the entirety of the application and how you would like to move forward.
Okay, before we get to that, it seems to me there are a couple of things here. Right now, the standard conditions say skylights are prohibited. Are we going to approve the skylights that are requested or not?
And which one of the condition has the?
It's number 9.
Thank you.
Oops.
So board members, how do you guys feel about the skylight?
I can live with it.
You can what? Live with it?
I can live with it, yes.
I guess my question would be, as a new guy on the block, is there any history of anybody recently wanting a skylight and having it rejected? And if so, what was the reason, et cetera, for that? I mean, if they were prohibited, presumably for a reason, and are we going to get the situation where we've allowed this and disallowed it somewhere else? Is there any
Steph, can you
history?
help us out?
I can't recall having rejected any skylights recently. And this is a new building too, so I think that makes a bit of a difference. So I think I could agree to the skylight.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it per se. I just didn't want to get a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Else.
Staff, do you have any history you can share with us?
Well, I do remember that when Michael Mitzak on the corner of Howard and Ukiah Street wanted to do some renovations to his property, he changed the windows on the southeast corner facing Ukiah Street. Most of the improvements were actually on the interior of the lot on the north side of the house. And he asked to put solar tubes in to better illuminate his stairwell on the interior. It was very dark in the interior stairwell, and the review board did not support a solar tube in that location. Then there's also, I think it's Coopage on Lansing Street. Over by the church, she did a detached building where Tom Thompson, I think, was the architect, and I cannot remember whether the review board approved that or not on the detached accessory structure. Then also on the Nicholson House, on the carriage building associated with the Nicholson House across the street, there was concerns about adding windows, actually not skylights, but just windows on the west side of the building. They had asked for 3 windows and the review board approved 2.
So the one rejection was just because it didn't fit with the general aesthetic of the town?
Over the years, that has been my impression. The review board has been hesitant to approve skylights within the historic district, and that is why I made that recommendation for condition 9.
Board Member Kapler does bring up a good point that this is completely new construction as opposed to an alteration.
Yeah. And could you go back to the plan again? I'm just trying to figure out how big it is, because it doesn't look like it's very significant either. Per se, it doesn't look like it's going to be.
So this is on the north side of the main residence, and what's north of this is the garage. So I'm also going to show you a profile view. So here's the skylight on the main residence, and here's the garage.
So it's not terribly visible anyway, is what you're saying, really.
True.
It should be visible from no public vantage point. And just one clarification is versus solar tubes, which are kind of a bubble in profile, these will lay flat.
Yeah, no, I think with what you said, I don't have a problem either then.
And I would third that. So I guess is there anything else, Board Member Kapler?
Yeah, just one thing with the solar shingles. There's no reference to the solar shingles in the conditions, is there, Juliana?
I don't believe there is. If you'd like to specifically condition that the shingles be solar shingles, we can add a condition 15.
Yes.
Just for clarification on condition 9, I'm hearing that the skylights are prohibited. You're thinking of having that removed from condition 9?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I definitely want to mention that the condition should be that there'd be solar shingles.
Okay. And not solar panels.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if we do that, we should probably also put in there both functional and non-functional solar shingles. There are going to be some solar shingles that are not going to be solar. They're just going to be dummy shingles.
That's right. On the north-facing side of each of the ridge lines, those will be inactive shingles, but they will, in appearance, be identical.
So identical, active, and inactive solar shingles.
From my understanding, does that mean they're just not connected? There's solar shingles, but they're not connected to the system? Or are they constructed to look the same as the others, but have no solar capacity to them?
My understanding, they simply have no solar capacity due to certain orientations not facilitating solar generation there. So on the north-facing slope of the roof, on both the house and the garage structure, the functionality of having active shingles would be close to none, whereas 100% of the generation will be on the south-facing sides. But the the appearance of them will be the same. They just won't have the active elements.
So the condition would be solar shingles and the remaining shingles to be identical in appearance to the solar shingles effectively. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if I may recommend a condition 15, solar shingles are allowed and not solar panels. The south-facing shingles shall be active and the north-facing shingles shall be inactive.
And identical to the south-facing.
Okay.
Yes.
And identical in appearance.
Yeah, I mean, what we want is, I think what Home is after is a roof that has a consistent look, where some shingles are active and others are whatever, inactive or just look the same. Is that correct?
I think that's correct.
Okay, so we have a amended condition 9 and a new condition 15.
Right.
So is there a motion there?
Yeah, then I'll make a motion to approve MHRB item 2020-13, subject to the conditions, the amended conditions set out in the staff report.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that. Yeah, I'll second that.
Great.
Staff, call for a vote?
Yes, and I'm just going to clarify briefly. So those amended conditions are condition of approval 9, removing that the skylights are prohibited section, and then the addition of condition 14 regarding the sidewalk and condition 15 regarding the roofing materials. And now I will go ahead and call for the vote here. So starting with Vice Chair Roth.
Aye.
And Board Member Saunders.
Aye.
And Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
So with that, the project is approved, subject to the amended conditions.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you. It's welcome back. My daughter was born at the Coast Hospital there, almost 13 years ago.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to our next item, which is item 9B, regular calendar. It's MHRB 2020-0014 Schofield. This is a Mendocino Historic Review Board permit request to construct a single-family residence by remodeling an existing garage. And was there any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
No, there are representatives of the application available on the line, but we have no other correspondence.
Okay. So staff, can you present this project to us, please?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Juliana Cherry with Planning and Building Services. This application was before the review board previously and approved. Then the property changed hands and was subdivided into 2 lots. The new lot we just considered for a single family home, and the remaining lot, this one, is in escrow, and the new property owners are seeking to finalize their building permit. But that building permit is contingent on having an approved MHRB permit. The one that was previously approved has expired, and so they're coming forward with the same application, asking again for review board approval. So that there is an existing garage on the property, and the proposal is to convert that garage into a single family home. So staff is recommending very few conditions. Most of these are standard conditions. The lot currently is non-conforming regarding lot coverage, and so condition 10 is intended to memorialize the non-conforming lot coverage. It's slightly over the allowance, which I believe is 25%. It's at 33 and some. They are proposing to paint the house Benjamin Moore charcoal slate or similar. The review board certainly is invited to weigh in on the proposed color, and the exterior trim would be from the Off-White collection, Atrium White. While the charcoal slate is a historic collection color, they're proposing it for the base of the building, and the review board's action regarding colors is that the historic collection be used for trim and not for the base color. So we will need to include that color in the conditions. All of the exterior doors and windows that are proposed will be made from wood. The fencing will comply with our local regulations regarding height. Condition 12 is about the walkway. The applicant does propose to repair the disrepaired walkway. And the applicant will, under condition 13, is a reminder that they need to obtain a categorical exclusion permit prior to the issuance of the building permit. If you have questions, I am available. Thank you.
Thank you much. Appreciate that, Planner Cherry. Is the applicant here?
We have representatives of the application available on the line here. We have Thomas Thompson and Deborah Lennox, both available.
Great. Can you please present the project to the board?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Tom Thompson. I have a resident somewhat of Mendocino, and actually your questions about skylights. I've done 3 projects that have had skylights approved by the board. But let's address this project, which is this section of Ukiah is a rather unique section with the blue door in it on the south side of the street, the blue door in at one end of the street, the Nicholson house toward the end with the Cafe Beaujolais and such at the other side. On the north side of the street, the house at the end, and then this new house. And in between are a whole series of buildings that have been converted from other uses, such as various kinds of things, garages, carriage houses, and such, into habitable spaces. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. What we're doing here is continuing that pattern. And with the house that you just approved, which is kind of a unique thing where you have 2 adjacent lots under the same, on the same day being approved, that will continue this pattern. Our intention with this is to continue the existing garage, make it now into a residence, and a residence that, of course, fits into the pattern of the town. The windows are vertically oriented. The doors, of course, are vertical. The siding is common siding to the buildings in the area. The Nicholson Inn has the sort of siding on this. There's a privacy screen to the north of the project that is necessary because this is a very pedestrian-oriented part of town, what with the Beaujolais Inn, the Luna Inn, the spa, the B&B, and also it's part of the kind of tour of the city that people take with the community center up the street and the baseball tour. So the idea of creating a privacy screen around the deck is an important piece so that the Peters can sit out on the deck and enjoy it without being disturbed by passersby. The colors are very similar to colors on buildings in the town, in the sense that there are, in going from Kelly Street along Covelo up to School Street, there are 10 dark colored buildings. And in the building at 45-370 Calpella has a very similar color to the one that we're proposing for the base, a dark green. There's other dark red buildings on Ukiah and of course, there's all of the brown shingle buildings that are a dark color and that sort of thing. So a dark colored base is not an uncommon kind of issue. I think that would hope that the commentary I provided with the project has been informative, and it supports the idea of this building unchanged exterior appearance, other than the windows and the siding, turning it into a residence. Continues both the idea of the town that buildings are not beyond their, and this building this garage was built in 1962 approximately, and the property, as I've noted in my commentary, has suffered through some house trailers on the property, which were removed in 1911. And it's my contention that actually this garage was designed by Mr. Zaka, who was the author of the Mendocino Art Center, which is also a dark colored building and kind of an important building in the town. So with that, I would welcome any kinds of questions that you might have. The Peters have 4 boys, and they'll be here quite often. So thank you.
Okay, we won't be, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. We're not going to have a discussion yet with questions. Is that the completion of the applicant's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oops, sorry. So at this point, the public hearing is declared open, and I believe we do have some folks lined up. Is that correct?
Well, we had heard that there may be individuals wishing to speak, but we don't see anyone here on the line at this time. I do want to note, and I apologize for not mentioning that previously as well, we also have a representative of the application here on the line, the applicant Kim Peters, it appears as well. So I just wanted to make that correction for the record, but there is no request for telecomment under public comment.
Okay, and is it true to say that we have both Deborah Lennox and Kim Peters queued up here as applicants, and they did not want to make comment at this time? Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. I think Mr. Thompson provided the presentation on behalf of all parties.
Okay.
I'm not on this project, by the way. Deborah Lennox, I'm on the next one.
Oh, my apologies, Deborah. You were on my list as this one.
No, sorry. I was wondering what I did, but I didn't do it.
Okay.
So we do not have any public comment. So let's bring this to
incompatible.
We'll bring this to board members for questions and comments of staff and the applicant. So board member Saunders, would you like to initiate?
I guess I'm following up for the previous one really on the sidewalk. So I'm not quite clear what happens with the sidewalk here. It was a proposal to repair it, so that it would go back to being a concrete sidewalk, or are we going to replace it here? What's the proposal?
That was part of the original proposal, but there is so little sidewalk there, if any, that we would be very friendly to coordinate with the Aikens and plant grass along there to make it all just become one smooth, continuous surface. And I don't know whether grass is smooth, but one continuous surface.
Yeah. So okay. So that was what I was kind of hoping would come out of this. I'm not sure how to record that, but that's good. There
isn't much concrete on that part, if any.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned skylights, and there are 2 on this. I think it was 2, maybe it's 4.
There's 3 actually.
3. Okay. So, but they don't show up on the model, and they are also on the north side.
There's one in the kitchen between the city. If you look at the plan,
Yeah.
There's one between the kitchen and the sitting room. And then there's a skylight over each of the entries to the two bedrooms, to the study and the bedroom. Now, the reason for that is that this is an existing building with a 8-foot ceiling. And those points where the skylights are very dark spots in the building. As you can see, they're pretty much buried into the building. And the idea was to introduce with a small skylight, I think it's about 2 by 2, some light so that there's the kind of wonderful quality of light coming into the building. This also takes an 8-foot ceiling and makes it feel a lot more enlivened with skylight coming in. And these were approved by the previous application.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that. And the roof is basically flat, so they're not like sticking out.
Excuse me?
I said, so the roof is basically flat, right?
Yes,
So not,
yes,
yeah,
it is.
so-
Very low slope.
Yeah.
And again, that's existing. It's been there since '62.
Yeah. Okay, I think those are the only two things I was curious about. So
Okay,
I'm done.
thank you. Board Member Kepler?
Yes, and the skylights are going to be flat, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And the fencing, the privacy screen on Ukiah Street, how tall is that going to be?
Well, we're allowed a 5'8" one, but we could go to 42, 48 inches. The problem is to get by somebody who's 6 foot or so walking by there, looking into the space and still having the privacy. There's an alternate among the pictures in there at the end. There's a one idea for the privacy screen that planting bougainvillea along that space between what is now the chain link fence and the house, and letting it kind of grow and become vibrant. It will kind of enliven that space a lot.
Right. Okay, but it's less than 6 feet in any case.
Yes. Well, it'll be, the fence itself is less than 6 feet, yes. Or the privacy screen is less than 6 feet, yes.
Right.
5'8", I think it was. We were talking about.
And the accessory building, what is the purpose of that?
Accessory building on the site plan?
Yeah.
Well, that's meant to be one of the buildings that the 10 by 120 square foot buildings that building back in there is the water pump. That's where the water pump is.
Okay, so there's not an additional building?
Well, there is proposed in here an accessory building, which is a 10 by 12 building that doesn't need an MHRB permit to be located. But we thought it would be appropriate to have your agreement to have it there. It's storage. I mean, this is 1,200 square feet with an active family of 6 actually, needs some sort of place for storage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Board Member Kepler. The original application was pulled in 2011, is that correct?
I'm not, no, I think it was, it was probably 15 or 16.
There's a clipping in our packet from Thursday.
Yeah, that's for the removal of the trailers.
Okay.
The last permit that approved essentially the similar project was in 2018. It was MHRB 2018-0012.
Yeah, it's the same project with the exception of the accessory building.
Okay. The chain link fence along Ukiah Street, is that going to remain or is that going to be removed?
That is part of our proposal to remove it. And at some point, not immediately because we need the privacy for construction and that sort, the security for construction and that sort of thing, but ultimately to be removed.
So this is remarkable that we actually have two adjacent properties on
Yeah.
a kind of empty blighted corner. I always, as I walk down that street, because I'm around the corner, as I walk down the street, I always looked at that garage building and I'm like, what is that for? It just doesn't look right there. So working within, the constraints of an existing structure, this is a nice improvement. It'll give something to the elevations that's not there now. Again, it's within harmony. I think everything else is fine. On the skylights, I don't think anyone's going to see those. And if it brightens up the inside, that's fine. It was approved earlier. I welcome this beautification of this corner of our town. And it's nice that we should actually have sidewalks that talk to each other. So do we need to modify any of the conditions if we were to approve this application?
I think the only thing we need to change is the addition of the condition on the sidewalks, the same one we had for the last item.
So it would be a modification to 12 to become removal of sidewalks and
Unknown caller. I believe it would be an additional condition 14.
Yeah.
The existing sidewalk fronting Ukiah Street shall be removed and replaced with grass.
Right.
And how does the applicant feel about that?
That's fine. I don't think there's much sidewalk to be removed, so that's
Okay.
most of the sidewalk is on the other, in front of the other lot.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions, concerns, thoughts?
No.
So let's close the public hearing and let's take if anyone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve MHRB item 2020-14, subject to the amended conditions set out in the staff report.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Staff, can you call for a roll vote, please?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was speaking.
We can't tell anymore.
Can't even see your lips moving.
No, I was doing the roll call vote. So let's start with Vice Chair Roth.
Aye.
All right, and Board Member Saunders
Aye.
and Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
So with that, the motion carries unanimously. The project is approved with the added condition of 14.
May I make a comment? I would like to thank Deirdre in her absence, but in fact, for her very generous and dedicated service to the Historic Review Board. I've made a number of presentations, and she's always been a very dedicated and thorough interrogator. So thank you very much, and thank you.
And congratulations.
All right, so if you don't mind, Vice Chair Roth, if we could just take maybe a 3-minute break or something while we bring Chair Lamb back into the meeting here, something like that. It might be less than that. It's just going to take me a moment here.
Yeah, why don't we take a bio break for maybe 3 to 5 minutes?
Yep, that sounds great.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in 3 to 5.
Okay, thank you. So that'll be coming back at about 3:30 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you.
Julia, are you ready for us? Great.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great. Nice to see everyone back here again. Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 10A, matters from board. A discussion and possible direction from the Secretary of Interior Standards related to solar installations. We have had copies of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for rehabilitation under discussion for, I'm going to say, 4 years. And really, I think what we're just talking about is the solar panels to offer planning some guidelines on what is recommended and what is obviously panels, and many people have put much thought into these federal standards, and it's really it boils down to 2 pages, which is pages 14 and 15. I'm wondering, Julia, if you happen to have those available to put on the screen in case the other board members have not seen those.
Yes.
Okay, so this, thank you, Julia, that's great. Okay, so what these guidelines do, that they've really boiled it down to, is for historic districts, provide some guidelines on things such as solar panels that face the street. If you see on the lower right, there is panels that are on a building because it's on a very busy corner. Even though it's in the rear, it's very visible. So that's item number 75, whereas on to the left, item 74, because the freestanding panels have been installed here that are visible but appropriately located at the rear of the property and compatible with the character of this industrial site. If it's an industrial site, then freestanding panels in the back tend to have different guidelines. And then it goes on. Can we look at, yeah, thank you. Okay, so the top right, if you look at item number 79, thank you. Those freestanding solar panels are not recommended. Although installing solar panels behind a rear parking lot might be a suitable location in many cases, here the panels negatively impact the historic property on which they are located. And, you know, so if you look at each of these items, you can tell that many people have spent many hours figuring out these 2 pages of federal guidelines for historic districts. And this item is on the agenda for us to discuss and take action for adopting the solar technology pages into the Mendocino Historical Review Board guidelines. So with that being said, I'd like the board to comment on this.
And if I may briefly, Chair Lamb.
Yes, please.
So I would just like to follow up too. So, and Planner Cherry actually reminded me of this at the beginning of the meeting, is that the review board under a previous board had taken action recommending that when, you know, we went through our next local coastal program update for the town of Mendocino to include these within the design guidelines. And we've understood that is still a request from the review board that be completed. Of course, as you know, we have not yet embarked on another update of our Mendocino town plan, zoning code, or the plan itself. But what we had discussed at the October meeting was creating some level of an interim policy, something like that would allow for applicants that are coming forward during this interim period to be aware of the review board's intention and to fall in line with the recommendations within these federal solar guidelines. So the direction today that staff would hope to receive from the review board is direction to prepare essentially a policy memorandum on this to be able to bring back to the review board. And it's similar to what was done with the exterior paint colors, where essentially the review board would give that direction to staff. We'd prepare an actual written policy that would come back for your review and approval that would stipulate these standards and likely would have these standards attached to it for the interim period.
Okay.
Discussion with board members. Yeah, Home, why don't you go ahead and start with some comments? It looks like you're at the ready there.
Yeah, I am. And,
Okay.
and I'm a little surprised, frankly, because I thought that's the action we took at the last meeting 2 months ago. I'm looking at the draft minutes, at the minutes of our last meeting, and it says at the direction of the review board and agreement with the staff, the item was continued to December 7th with a direction to staff to prepare a memorandum regarding the Secretary of Interior standards related to solar and existing provisions within the design guidelines and county code. So I thought we've already taken this action. I don't know why we're being asked to take the action again. I've been waiting for this memo, frankly.
Yeah.
Julia, perhaps you can clarify, please.
Yeah, sure. You know, I can only say that there's only so many hours in the workday for me. And unfortunately, I've had to prioritize other actions over preparing any sort of memorandum related to this. At the last meeting, we had talked about a variety of options that the review board could consider that were suggested by Planner Cherry. And I have since that time spoken with our county counsel's office to determine what the most appropriate pathway forward is. But I have not been able to complete that memorandum to produce it in time for this meeting. And you have my apologies on that. There have been a variety of cases that led to that. I don't need to give you my sob story as to
that's fine. So Julia, let's get to clarification then at this point. Although this has been an agendized item that we really don't need to discuss or vote on it again, that we've already done that, and that you're going to be making a memorandum incorporating pages 14 and 15 of the solar guidelines for the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And also just noting that the next meeting at this time is unknown, as we don't have any public hearing items for the January agenda. However, if the review board wishes to meet on this one subject, then that could be the purpose of that meeting, to just review that one memorandum.
I would be in favor of that.
Yeah,
okay.
And move the ball forward a little bit.
Okay.
That's an important topic that sounds like the 3 board members are in favor of that.
And then my only other request, Chair Lamb, would be whether or not the review board members have anything beyond what is shown in these 2 pages that they wish for staff to consider and include within that memorandum.
I don't think it's on there, but I think the idea of the solar shingles that came up in the house planning, making sure that they are consistent, you know, like they're active and active, but they look the same. That's actually a pretty good idea. I don't know whether we can enshrine that as a recommendation. If you're going to use shingles, you know, solar shingles, then the whole roof should be consistent. That was a good idea.
I think they are. I think from what I understand from the Tesla shingles is that they all look the same. It's just some of them have the solar going through them so that they're operating, and some of them do not.
And to board member Saunders' recommendation, let's just make sure that we
Sorry, I have a package.
let's make sure that we include shingles as part of the concepts discussed in the recommendations.
Yes, and so what staff I was captured here is that if you're using essentially solar shingles as your roofing material, ensuring that there is a consistent look to the roofing throughout the entirety of the structure, regardless if they are functional or not.
That would be a recommendation, yeah, because otherwise, you know, I don't know how much other shingles cost that aren't active and so on. So somebody may want to mix and match. I have no idea.
Sure. So excellent. So I've captured that. Is there anything else from the review board that you can think of in some of the recent applications you've seen? I will note one thing that staff has considered. I know that's been a request from the review board previously, as well as when considering solar applications, what is the amount of energy that they're putting out, and looking at that sort of the energy production that actually comes from it. So is there anything else beyond that that the review board would be seeking to see included?
No, I kind of had an assumption that, I mean, one of the things with lithium ion is that it can be a fire risk. So I kind of had an assumption and it's why I was asking the question about where the power plant is for the first house, that when you go through the planning process, there's some consideration of the safety aspects of storage of the electricity. That was the only thing I was hinting at, but I don't think that's in our purview. I think that's more a planning deal.
Yeah, only if it had, you know, a different look to it. If it was in its own standalone structure or something, would that maybe be under the purview of the review board? So, okay, good. So I have my solid notes and direction here. And again, I apologize for not having that memorandum completed, but we will hold a meeting in January to discuss that memorandum.
Very much.
Well,
Okay, so we can move
okay.
on from the solar.
Wait a minute. Can I-
Okay, well, yes.
For the last meeting, I had prepared a memorandum on the role of the review board with regard to solar installations in the village. And I'd like Julia to take a look at that memorandum and see if any of that might be useful in terms of the memorandum she's drafting. Because I think we do have a role to play with regard to these installations. It's not just that they're presented to us for our information only. I think we can make suggestions for changes, and I want that taken into account.
Absolutely. I will take a look at that as well.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Roth, do you have any more comments for this item?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sanders?
Nope.
No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on from that item. That was a discussion item. And we are going to item number 11A, which is matters from staff. A conference with the property owner regarding a roof-mounted solar array at 44960 Ukiah Street in Mendocino. So staff, would you like to make a presentation regarding this matter? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm just finding the button. Thank you.
There you go.
Cherry with Planning and Building Services. The property at 44960 Ukiah Street is shown here, sharing screen. The Mendocino Solar has applied for a building permit to install solar panels on 2 elevations of the roof. And we'd like to provide this opportunity to the review board to confer with the property owner and provide direction prior to us issuing the building permit. I believe that Jason Lord or Bruce Erickson from Mendocino Solar are also available for you to confer with.
Okay, would you like to pull him in as a guest to make some presentation on his behalf? Was that what you just said? You said that you had someone.
Yes,
from the
Mendocino
project?
Solar has, I believe they have a Zoom invite to participate in the
Yes, we do have them available here on the line. So they've just been unmuted. So please identify yourself and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Yes, hi, this is Jason Lord with Mendocino Solar, and we are thinking about putting 12 modules on the house. There'll be 4 on the south-facing roof and 8 on the eastern-facing roof. We realize that they'll be highly visible, so we're trying to use modules that are all black, and everything will be uniform in black and rectangular. So to minimize the look of the array from the street corner, we realize that it is highly visible, so any input would be helpful as well.
Thank you very much for your commentaries. Do we have any other comments from the board members? Board member Sanders?
Not at the moment. I'm just trying to figure out where exactly this is.
Same here.
Oh, it's at the corner of Howard and Ukiah Street, so just down the road from the other 2 presentations earlier.
Is it I was really unhappy with the presentation here because I think we need to have a little more information about the house, where it's planned, where the shingles are going. The pictures that we've been presented with are very difficult to read, frankly. And I think I know which house this is.
Next to
I believe
Leonard
it's a
Moore
historic
Cooperative.
house.
Yeah, if I may, staff, Juliana Cherry with Planning and Building Services. The applicant is not required to apply for an MHRB permit. And so we're using the documents that are provided with the building permit application. Here I have put up on the screen Ukiah Street. And here's school. Here's the project we considered first on the agenda, second on the agenda. And here is, I believe, the property for 44960 Ukiah Street. And it is this area of the roof right here where they're proposing to install the solar. And you can see this is a corner lot. Here's Frankie's Pizza over here and the sock shop across the street. And then I believe this is Headlands Inn right here.
Yeah.
So what role do we have?
Your role is to meet and confer, to give recommendations for the property owner to consider prior to going ahead with their project. So
I'm really concerned about this because the attitude that's being taken is that this is a request for installing solar panels in the village, and that we on the board have no role here. But we do have a role, and I think we need a little more information about what's being proposed other than what we've been given here, which is almost nothing. We don't know if this is a historic house. I believe it's a historic house. I walked, I think I found the house, but there are several buildings on this property. I wasn't sure which building we're talking about. I don't think the pictures are very clear in terms of where the panels are supposed to be going, whether or not this is going to be visible from the street, how large the array is, why it's being asked for at this point. There's almost no information here. And I think in order for us to fulfill our function, we need more information.
Quick clarification question. Is this the first, I know this is a 2-story building. Is this a roof at the first story or at the second story?
It's on the top of the second story. It's on the building on the corner across from the Mixax, the house that I believe was built in 1890.
So did you say it's on the roof of the second floor?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't put a solar panel on the roof of the first floor. It's a 2-story building.
I understand. I wasn't sure if it was stepped or not.
Oh, no, it's not. It's just 1 2-story house.
So this is Juliana Cherry, Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. This parcel is listed as a Category 1 historic resource, the Walsh Doolittle House on Ukiah Street. And the solar is proposed here on the roof of the house. I know it gets blurry as I zoom in. I apologize.
Would it be inappropriate to ask for I don't need all the, I'd like a little bit of background on the house, but it'd be possible to ask for a redo, in which case we can actually have some elevations and something, as Holmes says, we're trying to do our job. And this sort of seems like we're just sort of treated as an afterthought. It'd be nice to see what these would look like from an elevation from Howard Street as well as from Ukiah Street, and what the impact would be. Is that?
Founders, do you have any comments?
I guess my comment would be, we just went through a session where we're talking about the guidelines that we want to propose for solar panels. And if I look at this and what the proposal is, I don't think this would pass that because it's on a visible side of the house and everything else. So again, I'm not sure what our role is, but if we're going to put those guidelines out, and I know sometimes it's hard to be retroactive, you don't want to do that, but I don't think this would pass those guidelines, and I'd like some more information too.
So the Solar Rights Act prohibits the review board from denying an application that includes a roof-mounted solar array that meets these certain criteria. So that is state law. It's not something that's negotiable. It also prohibits having a discretionary permit required for these types of installations. So, that's really where the challenge is. And I know there's a rub about how this relates with the MHRB and the language within the town zoning code. We've known that's there. I've been working with county council, coastal commission. No one has attempted to harmonize the requirements of the California Coastal Act or the local coastal program, which is where the review board gets their authority from, with the competing regulation of California Government Code and the Solar Rights Act. So it's really left local jurisdictions in this very difficult spot where the state regulation says you cannot require a discretionary permit. However, then we have regulations that are in place that say that a discretionary permit is required. So it's the state has sort of left this in a very difficult position for local jurisdictions to have to be able to interpret this. So staff is doing our best effort at trying to comply with the two competing regulations while this is sort of it has not been harmonized by the state as to which governs and which is the ultimate authority over how you treat these applications. That's why it's such a difficult subject to negotiate.
So summarizing that statement, what you just said is the recommendations that came out of the state are in conflict with the state's requirement that you don't need anything to go put up a solar panel. I mean, that's basically what I just heard. So I'm not even sure why we're worrying about the recommendations we just talked about. I mean,
can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so, I feel like the whole discussion that we just had 5 minutes ago about the federal guidelines, that's federal. Federal is the entire United States for historic districts. And the federal guidelines that we're trying to adopt mean that if you have a historic house, like I know that house, and it's a very historic house, and perhaps they could put their solar panels on the newer, built in 1985 guest house, which is also on the property. Perhaps they could figure out something like that that's set back and that might not have to be on a category 1 house. And that was the whole purpose of trying to get the guidelines and the memoranda approved, by the next meeting, by January's meeting, is to say, oh, well, this house is a historic house. Those panels, and I understand the concerns that both Home and Ian and Alan brought up, that to say that it's just a discussion item and that we don't really have any purview over this. When we've just been through, we're trying to keep the historic nature of the town and to approve solar panels on a category 1 house on a very busy corner. That is a very busy corner. The pizza place is there, the sock shop, Leonard Moore Cooperative. It's just a very busy corner. To not see any picture with the elevations that I can see where everyone has a little bit of concern and would like to perhaps continue this one item until January. Would that be possible?
Can I just clarify? So I said state, but what you're telling me is that the federal regulations or the federal
guidelines for historic districts
for historic are in conflict with California's requirement that we just allow solar panels where
Mendocino
is a federally designated historic town.
But it's still a state federal debate, right?
That's the debate.
And to be clear, these are the federal guidelines. They're not law. So there's not, you're not having federal preemption in this instance. really the rub that we have been really challenged with, and you'll see that in the county council opinions that have been provided on solar installations, is that you have these competing regulations. You have the California Coastal Act with the local coastal program, which is where the review board obtains your authority from. That's all written within the local coastal program. That's at the state level. And then you also have the Solar Rights Act, which is also at the state level. So you have these two competing state regulations that don't harmonize with one another. So it leaves these local jurisdictions in this very difficult spot where it says you cannot require a discretionary permit, you must approve. And then on the other hand, you have a local coastal program that says a discretionary permit is required and it's under the authority of the review board. So you can see where they rub between those regulations.
Do I understand that from what I heard when you first presented this was that the board can't deny roof mounted. So since this is not an off roof solar panel, that there might be some additional guidelines that are worked into MHRB in the future for ground mounted solar arrays, but for the roof that there isn't much that the board can approve or disapprove?
I think that is my understanding. I understand that you can advise and make recommendations, but you cannot require in that instance. So you can't say you are denied from having this installation. You can advise that what would be in much better character with the harmony of the district would be to locate these solar panels on a different structure, a different portion of the structure, or complying with the guidelines that are prepared by the Federal Secretary of Interior standards.
Or perhaps even advise that they should use Tesla tiles instead of solar panels.
Correct.
That would require them to re-roof as well.
It seems to me, look, I'm not asking for a full-blown public hearing item type of review from the staff. But it seems to me we need a little more information about what's being proposed here for us to consider this. Pictures of the building, of drawings of where the solar panels are going to go, how it's going to look from the street, whether the building is historic, the size of the installation, the power, the colors that are being proposed. None of this was provided in this case. I think in the future, and for this item, I think I would postpone it to the next meeting, but in the future, we've got to have some kind of information before we can consider this. There was no information here at all.
Yes, and so I understand your comments, Board Member Kapler, and that's something that I think when we prepare this, or when I prepare this memorandum related to the Secretary of Interior standards, we need to capture within there what the review board would like to see when these applications come forward, stating that at minimum, the following shall be provided. And it shall include elevations, looking at what will this appear from the street level view, looking at this.
Right.
And the information on power, which we had already discussed previously. And so that way you do have the information in front of you at the time that you're making any sort of recommendations on the project. So I fully have heard you, and I will include that. And we can also include
that sounds good, Julia. Thank you.
In the
That's
January
perfect.
meeting. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One last small request. Can we have the memorandum and the review of the federal standards for historic structures and solar before this request for review of 44960 Ukiah Street?
Yes, you can. You mean in order of the agenda. It would appear that way already, as the memorandum will be under matters from board, as this item will be under matters from staff.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving on to agenda item number 11B, matters from staff. Potential exemption pursuant with MCC section 20.760.040A, a request to construct a louvered surround and install a generator at 44960 Albion Street.
And Chair, if I might, that is my property, so I would like to recuse myself from this discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ian Roth. That was expected. Julia, would you like to move by Vice Chair Roth into the holding room.
Yes, so Vice Chair Roth, I'll move you into the waiting room, and then when we're able to reconnect you, I can just connect you right back into the meeting, and it shouldn't be too long here, so.
Thank you so much.
Okay, putting
Thanks,
you
Chair.
on hold.
We have the agenda. I would like to invite staff to make some comments regarding this item.
Thank you. This is Juliana Cherry with Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. I shared a screen showing the site of the Seagull Inn, which is on Albion Street. And the review board recently considered some improvements to the Seagull Inn, some door changes and some minor window changes to the exterior of the Seagull Inn. The applicant has, the property owner is asked to install a generator, and staff has recommended that the equipment be screened. So we have this in our code. It reads that items that are visible within the historic district require an MHRB permit. So if he were to install a generator that was not screened, the mechanical equipment was not screened, they would need an MHRB permit. So what the applicant is proposing is to do some minor screening of the generator area, and I'm going to let the architect describe the solution for you so that it would not be visible within the historic district. And staff is looking for some guidance to help us with the building permit application for this generator and the louvered screen for the generator. I am available if you have questions.
Thank you very much, Juliana Cherry. So Julia Acker-Krog is, pardon me, is the architect on hold. Is that Deborah Lennox?
Yes, we have her available here on the line.
Okay, Deborah, would you like to step forward and make your comments?
Sure. Thank you, Deborah Lennox, architect for the Seagull Inn. Yeah, we've met with NCRE about the generator installation, and as part of the screening solution, we've moved it so that we've removed part of the existing wooden deck, so we wouldn't be expanding the footprint of the deck. And we have put the screening around the equipment, leaving enough room for the mechanical servicing. And there's an access hatch that lifts up. So the ends facing towards the street would be wooden louvers, and they would have, they would be open to open air, but you wouldn't be able to see through them, but they would have enough area to fulfill the requirements of the ventilation that's needed for the equipment. It's also would be open to underneath the deck, so there's quite a bit of ventilation. And it would go up against the, there's an existing fence line to the west, to the west that we share with the Mendocino Cafe. And in fact, they have some pretty big ventilation fans going on right in that corner too. So it's a good area to put mechanicals. And if there are any questions about that, just let me know. We didn't know if it was part of a modification of the existing permit or how the board wanted to handle this mechanical.
Okay, so let's go back to the board for questions. Mr. Kapler, do you have questions for Deborah Lennox?
No, I don't.
Mr. Sanders?
No, I think with the location and knowing what's around the Mendocino Cafe, and if it's a respectable looking set of surrounds, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so I don't have any questions as well. I know that staff has probably looked into things such as noise. It is already in a busy district. And that would not be part of our purview, but Juliana, would you like to say something about that?
I did, because you had mentioned noise, and the chief planner and I have had a lot of discussion about noise associated with the generator. And typically generators are used when the power is out. But when we issue a building permit, there's no restriction on the use of the generator. And generators can be loud. This particular generator would exceed the decibel level, which is the reason that we are encouraging them to put some sound attenuation around the generator to reduce the sound. We've also, the chief planner and I have been discussing, and I think she can clarify, but my understanding is in the future when property owners come forward and ask to install a generator, that they will sign an affidavit explaining that they understand the noise level limits that the county has, and that their generator may exceed those noise level limits. So that really puts the notice on the property owner to install something that either conforms with our noise levels, or to at least acknowledge that what they're obtaining a building permit might exceed the noise levels.
So a question there, and I know I have a generator, mine has a self-test, so it runs up every week for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true for these two?
Right, the noise level limit, I believe, is 60 decibels for residential districts, like the historic homes in the historic district. And this particular generator operates at about 65 decibels. So it's a little louder than the maximum noise level limit for nighttime hours.
Okay,
And
but my question really was, you said it's only going to get used, when needed, but these things are usually on a self-test, so they run up once a week for about 15 minutes during the day.
Right, so the building permit doesn't limit when you can run your generator. When you get a building permit and install your generator, you could run your generator 24 hours a day, every day. There's no requirement in the building permit saying you can only operate your generator during an emergency or during a self-test.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of a conflict between issuing a building permit for equipment that exceeds our noise decibels, where the intent is really to provide power when we have a power outage.
Yeah, okay.
And just to be clear, our code does allow for exceeding the decibel level standards, but for no more than 30 minutes in any 1 hour period. And so that's where, if you're doing a generator test, you're fully fine in terms of the regulations. And then there are exceptions for temporary and emergency use, which is how we've gotten to the current look of being able to have the affidavit signed and acknowledging by the property owner that while their generator may exceed our decibel levels, it will only be used in those exception periods. So, and I do see Deborah Lennox has her hand raised.
Deborah Lennox, come on in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that previously we had proposed putting the generator without a screen outside of the area of the deck, screened by land, because the landscaping is so thick there. But after talking to Juliana, Ian wanted to put the enclosure around it. So our understanding was the enclosure was going to be the mitigation for the 5 decibels that unit would go over in general, because he wants to be a good neighbor. But according to Gail, that unit is isn't going to get any quieter. So we couldn't have purchased a quieter unit. So we were doing the best we can. And then I was trying to save a fern. There's a really nice couple of ferns there. So we moved it back and then put the enclosure around it, hoping that would be sufficient.
So what staff is looking for is comments from the review board regarding using a louvered structure to disguise the generator within the historic district. If you would find that consistent with the previous permit that was issued for improvements here at the Seagull Inn.
Sorry, maybe I'm missing something. Is there a picture of the louvered structure?
Yeah, here, it's a very simple drawing.
I didn't get that on my package.
Yeah, it doesn't really look louvered in the drawing. Here, let me show it to you. This is what we have.
That's not the drawing. That's not the drawings they sent you, though.
That's the only ones we got.
Okay.
Let me.
I got that.
Deborah, can you
got
share
that? But that doesn't show the
screen?
louvered structures, is what I'm saying.
Can I do I don't think I can share a screen, can I?
If I stop sharing.
Great, Deborah, because at this point, this is all we got. We got a very vague roof thing. And then we got a picture of we didn't get any pictures of the louvered item. That my concern is we're approving something without seeing what it looks like, which means we're setting a precedence perhaps, and we don't know what it is. There it is. Okay.
So I apologize that it was not distributed. My mistake on my part. I
All right. Well, I
apologize.
appreciate you putting that up. Okay. So can you point out where the louvered doors are?
Yeah, so this is the louvered end. It just looks like they're just wooden slats,
I
basically.
see. Okay.
And that from the top, this is the existing deck. And here is the area that's kind of like a well down in the deck here there's going to be a concrete slab that it rests on. And then the deck is not very high off the ground. It's only about 24 inches, but then this enclosure comes up and he's going to put plants and stuff on it. So it's very well screened, because this is his most popular deck that the customers sit on anyway. So you will not see the equipment, but what you will see.
I understand that. Thank you. We hadn't gotten that picture. So
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to the board. Does the board have any more questions?
No.
Where did board member Roth go?
He can't answer.
He's
He's on hold.
Okay, we've lost him.
Oh, no, no, remember he recused himself for this
Oh,
item.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He's gone. Okay, so Alan, do you have any questions?
No.
No. Home, do you have any questions?
no.
No. Okay. I don't either. I think it's a nice looking project. I'm glad that we've got the visuals for it. It seems like the applicant is doing everything right by doing the applications. I think that it's a very nice design that Deborah, that you've worked out to offer some protection for visual and sound. So with that being said, would somebody like to make a motion?
Do we need a motion? I didn't.
Oh, is this a vote?
Yeah, Steph is not asking for a motion.
Discussion.
We're asking
Okay,
for
never mind. Okay,
Thank you.
so staff has recommendations, and
Thank you.
I think that we're all fine with the project. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. All right, so let's bring Mr. Roth back into the conversation.
All right, he is joining the meeting again.
Okay.
There we go. And there he is.
Hello, Ian. How are you? You're still muted, by the way, Ian.
I'm here.
Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 11C, which is matter from staff. It's regarding the urgency ordinance number 4472 regarding temporary business modifications during the COVID-19 pandemic, approved by the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors on October 20th, 2020. So staff, would you like to give us a presentation as to what was approved during that meeting from the Board of Supervisors?
Sure. So you were provided in your packet a copy of the adopted urgency ordinance number 4472, and this was prepared at direction of the Board of Supervisors for us to prepare an urgency ordinance that would waive certain provisions related to zoning regulations for temporary business modifications during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so some of the big items that I want to draw your attention to is that this ordinance exempts all of these modifications from any level of discretionary permit review. That would include Mendocino Historical Review Board permitting. But it does require that if the owner wishes to retain these improvements after the expiration of this ordinance, they would have to come through and obtain all proper and necessary permits for those improvements. A few things just to make sure that you're aware of in there. There are exceptions to parking standards so that folks could use parking spaces for temporary outdoor areas if needed, subject to certain restrictions, as well as there is a provision in there that would also prohibit the use of any ADA accessible parking spaces, just to ensure that still these businesses are accessible for folks who need them. It does not exempt you from any level of building permits that may be required for these improvements. But those are some of the big ticket items. And then lastly, the effective period of this ordinance goes until social distancing standards are essentially removed and allows full occupancy of these restaurants and businesses in the future. So it's a little bit of an unknown end date, but it also provides that the Board of Supervisors may revoke this at any time if they so choose. So this is more of an informational item, and I just wanted to make sure the review board was aware of what the Board of Supervisors had completed for this, so that if you see tents popping up around the community, you're not wondering if they're a violation or not, and making sure you're aware that this was at the direction of the Board of Supervisors for this. And I'm available if you have any questions.
I think it's
Okay,
good.
so I just have one question. I think this is fantastic. I'm really glad the Board of Supervisors did this. And we need to do everything we can to help every business, every restaurant, every business to stay in business. But I had a question about the parking, where you said that that parking could be used, even ADA parking. Does that include, it doesn't include streets, right? It would just be their own private parking, correct?
That is correct. So just to be clear, it does not allow you to use any ADA spaces, and there's a formula that we use to calculate how many parking spaces you're allowed to use based upon whether or not your business has access to on-street parking or not. So there's a little bit of a distinction in the ordinance in there, but it does not allow you to put any improvements within the road right-of-way, just to be very clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know that some cities have closed down entire streets or brought, I know in Windsor, they've brought out temporary, the businesses on the weekends are allowed temporary stanchions that go into the street, things like that, but that's not what's the case here. This is just for if they have their own private parking they can use, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right, great. That was my only question. Board members, does anyone else have any questions? Board member Roth.
I do
Vice
have
Chair
a comment. Thank you. I do have a comment. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I really appreciate it. I'm a little baffled. These items that come from members from staff, I don't want to put any more work on you, but it would be great to have a one-page or much more, extremely less, just summary of what you just told us. Because without context, when this comes up and we have, it's the urgency ordinance, and I don't know what we're doing with it or what the implications are or how it relates. So even 3 or 4 sentences with a little memo on the front of it would be very helpful to understand what the context is, what you're briefing us on, and how you'd like us to provide action. Like I said, I don't want to add to any work, but it'd be great to have a little bit of context with these other items from staff.
If I may, I believe the staff, the reason why they do it so abbreviated is that they intend to tell you what's going to happen by verbally.
I get it, but when I see an ordinance come in the packet, I'm going, what's the angle? What do they want us to think about? What are the issues?
So 2 or 3 sentences.
That's no more.
Julia, does that sound like something that can be worked in for future matters from staff?
Yes, I believe so. It would probably be pretty brief if I'm being honest, but I will do my best. So
no more than that much. Just a little bit of context.
Okay.
And then I do just want to apologize. I have to run to another meeting, so I'm going to turn over secretarial duties to Juliana Cherry, who is still on the line. And my apologies for the conflict in my timing here. So.
Okay. See you later, Julia.
And thank you, Deirdre.
Thanks for staying on as long as you did.
No problem.
Hi. So while the review board was discussing the urgency ordinance, I received an email from Jason Lord saying that he does have additional information that he would like to share with the review board regarding the solar array, and felt he didn't have the opportunity to discuss it. So I wanted to inquire the review board if you'd like us to get Jason back on the Zoom meeting and allow him the opportunity to share some photographs that he's taken with the review board so that you can see the site and provide some comments. Or if
Board
you
members,
just,
what do you feel about that? Can we come back to that item, which was an item of
11A.
discussion regarding the solar panels on Ukiah Street? Does anyone have any objections to that?
Nope.
Mr. Kapler? No. Mr. Saunders?
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead and bring.
Oh,
I asked you, Mr. Roth. You were
I
asked
didn't-
first.
I didn't hear.
Oh, you didn't hear.
Sorry. I don't object, but I don't want this to be in lieu of what we requested for January.
okay, so then I just need to ask James Feenan if Jason Lord is available to add into the meeting.
They're not in the attendee area anymore. I cannot bring them into the meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm sorry to say, we've discussed the item. I think it has to go on to January, which was already going to be a solar discussion. So
Was that stellar or solar?
solar, a stellar solar discussion. So, I mean, is that doable at this point? We've lost him, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
all
James.
right, so I'll communicate with him on that. Thank you.
We had technical difficulties with James, so we tried. Okay, well,
So there's one more item on the agenda. I don't know if the chair wants to maybe pass the baton on to the co-chair at this time.
hi, it's been a real pleasure. It's been 6 years of time. I have really enjoyed being on the board. I've enjoyed working with you, Juliana, and with Julia, and all of you board members. And I hope that you can encourage your neighbors to also at least spend 3 years on this board. I think it's really important. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with all of you. And I'd like to pass the baton, the gravel, on to Vice Chair Ian Roth. You are now the new chair.
Thank you, Chair Deidre Lamb. First and foremost, I want to say believe it or not, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Why would I not believe that?
I greatly appreciate your deep knowledge, your skills, your perceptions around town, your relationships. I'm going to lean on you. So I got your number. So don't start
Thank
changing
you. I
it.
hope you do. I've done that with prior chairs.
6 years is a long time, and it's a lot of commitment. And I know that you don't do this lightly, that you research and you call and you check, and I appreciate all that you do for that. It's going to be a big set of shoes to fill, and I know that we're always chasing after new members. So thank you for every month you put out that we need you to come and participate. And thank you for bringing on Mr. Saunders. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much.
He's going to be a great addition, and I'd love to bring on
I think so.
a little more diversity instead of 3 white guys. Try to bring on
Well, it's
someone
up to
else.
you.
In here. I'll take
Up to
anyone
you.
though. I swear I'll take anyone.
Yeah.
But we appreciate your service. You're not going to disappear, and we're not going to let you go away. I do want to say thank you for Julia and Juliana. This is I hate it when this happens.
Oh, look at that.
So
No kidding. Well, thank you very much. That's
this
really
is a
nice.
plaque
Thank
for you to hang in your
Kidding.
window next to all your listings.
There you go. It'll go
And
right
I'll-
behind my desk.
I'll read it for all those who don't have any visuals.
Probably not in the window, but
With appreciation and acknowledgement of service, Deidre Lamb, Mendocino Historic Review Board, member 2015 to 2021, vice chair 2019 to 2020, and chair 2020 to 2021. So with heartfelt appreciation, a lot of honesty and serious, thanks for hanging in there.
well, thank you, Ian. I think you're going to do a great job with the board. Thank you very much, Mr. Kapler, Mr. Saunders, Juliana Cherry, for James, for all of you. And for Matthew Kadowski, who I believe is still logged in there. Thank you all very much. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting. That's
you.
it. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.